CAPSI podcast series, Conversations on African Philanthropy.
Welcome to the second segment of our Conversations on African Philanthropy. This is a special episode where we're chatting to our colleagues, the staff members at CAPSI. I'm now joined by colleagues that are representing the research portfolio. Obviously, not everyone who is in the research team is here. We have colleagues who are not here. Dr. Dennis Osei, who is currently in Ghana. Dr. George Tunebo, who is also in Ghana. And several other research associates that we have across the continent. But right now I'm joined by three colleagues. I'm joined by Dr. Wycliffe Ouma, Dr. Eleanor Chipeta, and Mr. Xolani Dlamini. Welcome, colleagues.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Let's start with you, Wycliffe. At some point, you are part of the team and the group that I was talking about. That you joined CAPSI when you were still a student, so you are part of that inheritance that I was talking about. But as soon as you joined CAPSI, you were immersed into the research portfolio, starting with you writing one of our articles for our journal, but at some point asking you to manage some of our research functions. And so you have a broader idea of what CAPSI's research portfolios look like. Maybe let's talk a bit about you firstly. Who are you? What your experience is? What is your background? And then you can talk a bit to some of the research work that you have done at CAPSI.
Thank you, Prof. and colleagues. So, like Prof says, my history with CAPSI, I would claim that I'm among the first CAPSI sort of employees, but more so I was a student at that point in time. So, student working and studying at the same time. But to go back to my background, I was trained in financial economics. I did my undergraduate BCom and specialized in finance. I also did masters in financial economics and specialized specifically on the risk factors within the stock market. So I did both my undergraduate and master's degree in Kenya. However, my master's degree was done in a tripartite kind of universities association. So there were two universities. One is the Central Bank of Kenya institution. It's called the Kenya School of Monetary Studies, and Jomo Kenyatta University of Agriculture and Technology, and Zurich Institute of Finance in Zurich. And then I came to Wits to specifically do my finance, and which I loved so much. The love is not lost, although now I have gone too much into the area of philanthropy, social investment, corporate philanthropy, and issues within the philanthropy ecosystem as a whole. So meeting Prof. Becky in, I think, February 2019, I think I had a trip going to China with MBA students, and I said, Prof, let me go to China first. When I come back, we'll hold our conversation, because I don't know what this thing is. I want to understand it. And when I came back, we had a conversation with Prof. Moyo, and I'm like, what is this philanthropy thing? I don't understand it. How does it relate to my studies in finance? But he said, and I remember this word, Chief, we need you here. Just stick around. And so I stuck. I was lucky to be among the first authors for the CAPSI's academic journal. And my paper, I'm proudly saying that it was among the editor's choice. So, and I think the guy in charge of the journal is here to show the numbers of the paper. So, I mean, I came in big, and I've stayed. And I've been lucky to be so much immersed in CAPSI. I've done so many things in CAPSI that I may not be able to enumerate all of them here. So one of them major highlights that I have is that I was privileged to be the one in charge of my fellow research associates managing the research division. At the same time, something that I've stuck to is to be the one coordinating the CAPSI academic conference. I mean, it's an accolade that I take seriously, because I remember having the conversation with Prof at the beginning that we needed to have an academic, tandem of the African Philanthropy Conference, and it came to be, and that's where we are. So at the moment, The research, still research within the research division, but I'm the one managing the research of the MasterCard Foundation program for the 5 countries in East Africa. I have more to say, but I think I should just stop there.
Yeah, we'll come back to some of the details of the work that you do. But let's move on to Eleanor. You don't like us calling you Eleanor. What the name that you want us to use? Mida.
Mida.
Okay. Can you talk a bit about that?
No, my first name, according to my documents, is Eleanor. It was my grandmother's name. But my middle name is Mida. So my family calls me Mida. I'm called by my middle name.
Okay, great, thanks. So Mida, let's come to you now. Obviously, we also have a history with you in terms of you were part of the school, the business school, before you joined CAPSI. What's your background and how did you end up at the school?
Okay, thank you. That's an interesting one. I always say if I had a chance, I would record my story and share with the South African women, South African youth, and maybe just to encourage them. I'm originally from Malawi. I came to South Africa here in 2005, and I came with a matric. I studied all my tertiary education here. My undergraduate was in public business administration, and I studied with UNISA. Thereafter, I was interested into business-related issues, so I started a bit of businesses. I started I think about 4 businesses successfully, and sold them as they matured. And so from there, I was more interested into entrepreneurship. I just wanted to understand more. So I went and did my master's in entrepreneurship with Northwest University. After that, I was trying to understand more. I think the nice part in me, or maybe the wanting to know about social entrepreneurship and maybe the intuition in me, I just felt like I wanted to understand more about social entrepreneurship. And why? Because I was worried about starting a business and earning the money myself. I was always thinking about someone else, the empathetic version of me. So I was more ingrained towards social entrepreneurship. So my master's was in social entrepreneurship. After that, I felt like, okay, this field is quite new. Now we're just trying to understand social entrepreneurship intentions. So I delved deeper into understanding the intentions. So my PhD, I actually developed a scale to measure social entrepreneurship intentions, looking at the antecedents and analyzing them. So after that, I did my postdoc at Wits University. I did it for 4 years, where I went more into understanding social entrepreneurship, but now I wanted to understand the impact, because it's not just about the intention. What is it doing on the ground? So I tried to measure social entrepreneurial intentions, or the impact thereof. So I did that measure from the entrepreneur perspective. It's like if you are an entrepreneur and what you're doing is making you happy, you are achieving what you are intending to achieve, it means you are making some form of impact. So again, after I did that analysis, I was still falling short, because if you really want to understand impact, you have to understand it from the beneficiary's point of view, who are the recipients of this service that you are offering as a social entrepreneur. So then I came into contact with, actually through my journey in my postdoc, I applied for a position here at the business school, which was in January 2023. I got the job. So in one of the meetings, we were having a family meeting at the business school. Prof. Moyo came to present about the project on MasterCard, on MasterCard. And after hearing what he was presenting there, it got my attention, because it spoke volumes to what I've been doing all along. And I said, I would love to be part of this initiative. And at the end of that presentation, he said, if you want to join, just drop us an email. As simple as all that. And I did exactly that. So he responded requesting for my CV, and the conversations went to where we are now. So I was so happy to hear the presentation that he was talking about the Mastercard project, because that was the next phase of my research journey. I wanted to understand impact from the beneficiary's point of view, and this is exactly what this project is trying to do. So yeah, here I am today. I joined the Mastercard project in September, and at the moment I'm heading the southern region, part of Africa, on the project.
Right, we'll come back to that. You also teach at the school, so we'll probably talk to you a bit about that. Earlier on, we had a team that was representing the academic team. You are also part of that, the two of you. But let's move on to Xolani. We have a bit of an interesting portfolio here at CAPSI, and most people usually ask me, what does a digital publisher do? And Xolani, your portfolio is on publishing, but your title is digital publisher. Maybe let's first hear a bit about yourself, your background, and how you ended up here at CAPSI, and then also try and maybe explain to people what digital publishers' functions entail.
Well, thank you, Prof. My name is Xolani Dlamini, and I'm a digital publisher here at CAPSI, which means, briefly, I manage all the publications. So my background, I studied information science, focusing, at least my area of interest were mainly online publishing, web development, and information technology. So my journey is not quite as long as my colleagues here. So I started working at the Academy of Science of South Africa. I was publishing the South African Journal of Science, which is a multidisciplinary journal. And it was quite, making reference to what my colleague said earlier, that CAPSI is quite a fast-paced environment. So where I come from, it was quite one of the biggest journals in South Africa, also hosted at one of the pinnacle establishment, which is the Academy of South Africa. So I think that's where I learned to adapt and to be fully submerged into an environment where you need to constantly be on your feet and learn to work with others, particularly the very, very I want to be careful in choosing my words, but working with academics, it's not like anywhere else. So it really helps to know who you are and how to adapt, especially your strongest points. And I want to get into what is maybe my main or my core functions here at CAPSI. So I was maybe first, let me start off so when CAPSI, I think I can also regard myself as one of the no, I'm joking. I don't want to say the founding fathers, but I joined in.
Nobody can, you can say it. You're a founding father of publishing.
I joined in at quite an early stage, and so they were looking to publish the International Review of Philanthropy and Social Investment Journal, which is an open access interdisciplinary journal, online journal that is focusing on cutting edge primary research, sort of looking in early starting, exploring the philanthropic and social investment landscape in Africa. So we did the first issue, and I'm reminded whilst I'm going over this that during my interview for this position, I was reminded that I'm very winding. So I'm really trying to be very concise and straight to the point. So yeah, that's how I came to be familiarized with CAPSI. At the time, I was still doing some consultative work with the School of Medicine, publishing their VETS Journal of Clinical Journal. So that's how I ended up meeting with Professor Moyo, and we had a discussion about the vision, the objectives of the center, and what they hope to intend, particularly in their output or in their research offerings. And So I took quite an interest because in my background, I've worked with, I haven't been confined into a specific field. Like I said, I used to work with the multidisciplinary journal. I also used to publish another journal, ICHESA, the Journal of Energy in Southern Africa, and the VETS, the Medicine Journal, and now I'm here publishing philanthropy. So I've really over the years tried to immerse myself to also I've in a way grown an interest into the field itself, but I mean I'm still not as well in as the rest of my colleagues, as my work mainly deals with making sure that I manage the submissions, the peer review process, the production up until online publishing. So I'm more in the background, making all my colleagues shine. I think in essence that's my job.
Great, thank you so much. And I want us to talk to you a bit more so that we can then move to the specific research items. So our research portfolio is anchored by what we call the Chair on African Philanthropy profile, which is a document that was produced early on in the beginnings as a result of consultations with different institutions and researchers, and Professor Alan Fowler played a huge role in developing that document. And that document has got multi-tiers. So we've got research that is country focused, we've got research that is thematic focused, and we've got research that is comparative. And since 2018-19, as you were saying, we've been really using different streams of research that lead to publications. And I want you to talk a bit about the different publication formats or types that we have and where we are with each of those.
So, as I said earlier, CAPSI, over the couple of years, CAPSI embarked on a number of research projects, and that also include our staple offering, the journal itself that I mentioned earlier. So, but in-house, we also have other various publications outlets, such as research reports, research articles, conference proceedings, and other many various. So in what came about from particularly those endeavors into exploring various expressions of philanthropy in whether it's different formats or different forms or different practices. So one of what came about was what we called research reports, which really shows or gives an insight into various expressions of philanthropic forms, types, and practices across the African continent. So, in what you just mentioned, Prof, that we not just only looking. There's many various publication formats. So what we did, I'm just going to make a typical example, particularly with the research reports, is that from those reports, we started a series which we called the Research Spotlight Series, which aimed to highlight or give platform to the authors. So going back again, over the couple of years, CAPSI worked with, I think, several researchers and partners in trying to, which is quite in line with the center's objectives in bridging the gap in philanthropy. So we try to interpret the African landscape to understand exactly what are the different types and forms of philanthropy. And so we have that as one of our offerings, and you can find our research reports, which is published on our CAPSI website under research reports. And we also have other various types of engagement or outputs that we put out as a center, particularly relating to our outputs. And I think maybe that's all for now, Prof.
Yeah. So thanks, and I think maybe another thing that I want to say that our research has been informed also by the modules that we offer for teaching, and some of that ends up being teaching material. But I think one of the things that we always probably forget as CAPSI is that we have also been doing case studies, and those case studies are normally done by the case center, and they form part of our research. And so I think when you are doing a submission to faculty, I was intrigued by the number of publications that have been produced by CAPSI colleagues who are either internally and the research associates, either through our own platforms or through other journals. Am I right that I counted up to about more than 50 to, was it between 50 to 100 publications that we have produced so far?
And I think that's
taking
also
different forms.
speaks to how actively involved all our, not just in terms of our own publications, but our associates, our staff members, and also all, anyone basically who's in our midst. It shows that there's, they are quite actively involved in their own various, workings, and it shows just by that number alone.
Yeah. And finally, how do people submit manuscripts to the journal? I think that should be one of your cameras.
So we often put out calls to invite researchers to submit to our staple offering, which is the International Review of Philanthropy and Social Investment. You can access our journal on our CAPSI website, or you can search for the journal, and then if you want to submit, it will take you to our submission platform, which is called Editorial Manager, which manages the submissions, the peer review up until production. Excuse me. And we also publish our journal on Sabinet, which is an African journals platform. So I think that's
great. Thank you so much. I mean, there's a lot more that we could talk to you about. For example, some of the webinars that you run, some of the, the series around publishing that you run, but also the infrastructure that you are putting in place for our publications, including the road to accreditation for our journal, issues around cross-referencing and others. So we can talk more and more about that, but I think colleagues can actually get a sense of what you do. And so thank you so much. I would want to excuse us so that we can be joined by our postdoc, Tsele Moloi, and then I can continue the conversation with the colleagues here.
Thank you, Prof.
All right. So as Tsele is taking up the seat, so I spoke broadly about what our research looks like, but I want us now to focus on specifics. Let's start with your research interests. What are your research interests, Wycliffe?
Yes, so my interest, especially given that I'm in CAPSI, having come from finance and economics background, is majorly to understand the social impact part of philanthropy. So I have tried over the years to understand this from finance component, whereas my first research was to understand the corporate philanthropy, which is majorly corporate social responsibility. But I've delved into the issues to deal with the ESG, which now delve deeper into the issues of impact, how the environmental and social issues affect the societies and governance. And currently, I'm hovering in between corporate philanthropy and social impact investing. And I think that if I have to classify how my research is, that's where it is. I'm also not leaving my finance alone. So I would say that I'm almost becoming a jack of every trade that's available in front of me. I'm also currently working on a research on part of my PhD objectives that has taken a bit of time to publish, but it's mostly because of having diverted most of my attention to work in CAPSI and CAPSI-related research activities.
Yeah, great. And you, Mida, again, I know you spoke broadly around issues of social entrepreneurship, but what are your other research interests going forward?
Okay, well, social entrepreneurship is a new area of research, so there's a lot that can be done. At the moment, I'm more focused on understanding impact, and however, you have to look at the whole ecosystem. You can't really make an impact if you don't have the required resources to really attain that impact. So I'm looking into understanding digital innovation, how social enterprises can adapt to the changes that we are encountering now in the digital age, how they can use AI, for example, to achieve sustainability of their businesses, to make that impact. I'm also looking from that other angle of grassroots innovations, maybe looking into community currency. So these are new areas that I'm just zoning into and trying to analyze and see which direction I'll really take. But at the moment, I'm really ingrained into understanding impact, how are social enterprises making that impact.
Great, thanks. And we're joined by Dr. Tsele Moloi, again, one of our colleagues here who joined CAPSI, partly as a student, and is now serving as a postdoc here. Again, Tsele, let's talk to you a bit about yourself, your background, and the areas that you specialize in.
Thank you, Prof. My name is Tsele Moloi. I'm in a space of business and society. In fact, trying to interrogate the role of business in society. Because I believe that business, done as a wealth creator, done responsibly, could be a great locomotive in pulling people out of poverty. But how do we do that? So my journey with CAPSI started in, I would say, 2013 or 2014. While I was doing my master's, as a naive and enthusiastic student, I went to the Dean of Faculty of Commerce with a proposal to start a center on responsible businesses, center on business and society. But at the time, because I was still doing my master's, I did not have any experience. It was rejected. And when the center on African Philanthropy started, I wrote an email, a cold email to you, Prof, to say, I would like to meet with you so that we can, because I could see that it aligns with what I wanted to do, but at the time I did not have an experience. And it was in 2017, that's when we started the conversation, and I've been partly part of the center since then. And at the time, my interest was, at the time I was looking at, because everything that I do, it might be stock market, it might be mining, it might be artificial intelligence, everything, it has to be how it impacts society. So at the time, I wanted to start this because I was interrogating myself, what is the real role of business school in society? What type of leaders are we dispatching back to society? Are we dispatching leaders who are concerned about maximizing shareholder value at the detriment of society? So that was what I wanted to understand. That's why I wanted to center at the time. And now, with CAPSI, because I'm part of social investment, I've got a chance to try and interrogate that. So for my PhD, I was looking at the role of banking sector in society. So I was looking at creating shared value, how banking sector can create banking opportunities, but out of alleviating societal challenges. So joining CAPSI as a postdoc, in fact, after finishing my PhD, I produced 2 papers from my research, and they were both rejected. And I could realize that, in fact, here one need an advanced training, because I believe that the skill that we need to learn as researchers and academics is to have that intellectual humility, to acknowledge that there are things that I don't understand and I need advanced training so that I can understand those things. That's why I chose to join the center as a postdoc, so that I can have that space to learn, to have that advanced training in research, and to also focus on quality research. How do I produce a research that will be impactful to society? Because what I've seen within academia is we are focusing on quantity. We are focusing on producing 5 to 6 papers, but when you start reading the papers, you find that there is no impact that it has. There is no meaningful impact in society. So we are focused on creating publishing machines and for me to join this, I wanted to move away from that, to have a space that I can look at the quality of my work so that it can have a meaningful impact in society.
Yeah,
Thank you.
great. And I think, if I'm not mistaken, you are probably one of the very first students that we took along in 2019 to an international conference in the US.
Yes.
I think it was you, Nomatemba, and Kira.
And Kira, yes.
And you had to do a panel at the Hannover conference.
Yes.
I mean, that's something that we want to do all the time, but it's subject to obviously availability of resources. How useful was that experience for you as a student then?
I gained a lot of experience in a sense that it was my first time to present at the conference. In fact, standing in front of people and presenting the work that I've done, it was for the first time, and I gained a lot of experience when it comes to presenting and so on. And it's one of those things that I believe I still need to learn and practice a lot, so that when opportunity avails itself, I am in a space that I can do that. But I gained a lot of experience when we were there and presenting three of us.
Great. So I want us to at least begin winding down, but focusing on the work that you are doing now. So one of our projects that is really positioned to give us a lot of data, information, insights, and knowledge is the contributions of the non-profit sector towards dignified jobs for young people in Africa, which is supported by the MasterCard Foundation. Maybe, Wycliffe, we start with you and you talk a bit about the intervention on research. What does it entail? And you can even relate it to the countries that you are focusing on. And what is it that we should be looking forward for the next couple of months, based maybe on the intervention planner? I'm sure you know it by head.
Thank you. Yeah, as a firm believer in data, I think that's one of the best things that has ever happened to me working in this space, where at the beginning you had to start scratching your head, where's the data, how do you deal with it? I mean, that's one of the things that has really impacted my research at CAPSI. And I think I think this one I've shared so much with Prof. Marty. He knows, you too know. I struggle a lot with primary data sources. I am good with data analysis. Once I have the data, the problem is solved. So one of the most fundamental things that is coming with the MasterCard Foundation project is that we are investing deeply and so much in data, and we're going to get a lot of data diversity. Already the preliminary meetings that we've had with the youth, the three meetings that we've had with the youth that have already produced some data points that we can begin to, project and say that we are going to be a data powerhouse in terms of understanding the contribution of the nonprofit sector to youth employment, dignified and fulfilling. So the project is very interesting. It's a 5 years project, and it's very much phased, and that's the way the intervention planner is at the moment. We have developed a toolkit, a methodology toolkit, or a data collection toolkit. So if you, so to speak, for data collection, it has undergone a very rigorous process that it has been panel beaten by both a team of experts, country partners, the youth themselves. So we believe that it's a product that is going to stand the test of time and the quality of data that is needed for it. Personally, I am responsible for the 5 countries in East Africa, and one of the countries we held one of the convenings is Rwanda, which is among the countries in East Africa where I'm in charge of. So I'm in charge of Rwanda, Tanzania, Uganda, Ethiopia, and Kenya. Yeah.
Okay. And for you, Eleanor, what are some of the things that you can speak to in terms of the research intervention and your experience so far?
Okay, yeah, thank you. That's an interesting one, and I can see already it's coming from my area of interest. So it's something that is exciting me, looking into the quality of data that we are going to get, and not only looking at the quality, but the amount of data, how diversified it's going to be coming from 17 countries. Currently, I'm managing 5 countries in Southern Africa. That is South Africa, DRC, Mozambique, Zambia, and Zimbabwe. And looking at what we are trying to research, again, I'm saying we're trying to assess the economic contribution of the non-profit sector on youth employment. And well, we are saying youth employment, economic contribution is the same thing. And we are trying to understand how the NPOs are really contributing to youth, especially those lying in the margins. And this is exactly where the issue lies. We want to understand how they are impacting, or even including those that are excluded, socially excluded, even economically excluded. So that excites me. And again, we are also, this is a 5-year project. It's going to be quite detailed. We are already into understanding how we are going to do the sampling and how we are going to do the data collection. We are going into those phases now. But working with partners in various countries within Africa and especially in my region, I'm seeing that the work will be made easier because we had to engage with people or institutions that are already doing research in similar areas of interest. So that makes our life easier to really implement on the research, because it's really quite extensive to really pull it off and come up with the data that we want. So at the end of the day, this data, I am so convinced that it will be quality data that it will help with policy making, and especially to bring to light issues around marginality, issues around those that are excluded from society. And that speaks close to heart, especially from what I want to understand the impact, how the non-profit, now we are talking about non-profit, social enterprise, non-profit, they are all in the same pool of thought. Yeah, how they are making that impact. So I think my colleague has already spoken to where we're coming from with this research. I just took it ahead just to give you an example of how impact will look like and how we can achieve to get that kind of understanding of that impact. Thank you.
And then maybe I just continue with you again and maybe talk to us a bit about what's next for the maybe next quarter, for the rest of the year, in terms of some of the activities that you'll be focusing on yourself as part of the team that's leading Southern Africa.
Okay, so the next quarter, right now, as my colleague just mentioned, we developed a toolkit that will be implemented. It's like a guidebook that will be implemented by all our partners in various countries so that we get the consistency in the data. And this toolkit comprises the tools that we are going to use to collect the data. So at the moment, we are cleaning up the tools because we just came off the time when we were trying to gain insights from the youth themselves and also even our partners to kind of like sharpen the tool so that it gives us what we want to collect. So from here, we need to clean up the tool and then also apply for ethics. Once the ethics is approved, also along the same tangent, we also try and test the instrument so that it really gives us what it is intended to do on the ground. After that, then we have to engage some stakeholders within the various countries, because if you are collecting data of this magnitude, you can't just do it blindly. We need it's a co-creation process that is involving a lot of stakeholders along the way. So we have the youth that we had engaged, we have the partners, but we also have to engage the governments themselves, even the non-profits in the countries of origin where we are conducting the service. So part of that process will happen in the next phase of the project. After that, that's when we'll go into the field to collect the data from our youth, and also because we've got different tools. We've got one tool that will collect data from the youth themselves, and another tool that will collect data from the non-profits, and then also from experts. So once this process runs, that's when we do the data analysis. So this, it sounds like it's just 1 or 2 things that will happen, but it's a process that can take another 6 months to materialize. Thank you.
Thank you, Mida. So I really want to thank you, but also to put it on record that when you joined, you actually were the caretaker for the principal researcher position. and you did a lot of work to lay the ground for other colleagues who then joined you later to take over from where you actually left. So I want to thank you profusely for that. So we don't have Dennis here, but Dennis is responsible for West Africa, and is responsible for Ghana, Nigeria, Burkina Faso, Cote d'Ivoire, and Senegal. He's also currently looking and taking care of North Africa. We have 2 countries there, Egypt and Morocco. However, in the next week, we'll be shortlisting for the research lead for North Africa. There are other elements of the project, but I think it was important for us to just focus on the research component. One of the maybe other interventions that is closer to research is that of the training and education, where we are looking to train at least 20 doctoral students over a 5-year period, whose topics will be focusing on issues that the project is in charge of. Wycliffe, let me come to you and maybe ask you to talk to the camera and talk about the academic conference and what's expected going to the 5th conference.
Oh, thank you, Prof. Like I said earlier, academic conference runs like piggybacks on the main conference. It's the child of the main philanthropy conference. It started 3 years ago. I think we are in the 3rd iteration that is taking place in Victoria Falls from the 28th of September and July, combined to the main conference, which is ending on the 2nd of October, of August, if I'm not mistaken. So the academic conference is a 2-day event, specifically focusing on, typically the way academic conference takes place, we expect researchers to send their proposal. Then those proposals will undergo peer review process, and the best ones will be selected. This year, as the call stipulates, we are also offering at least 10 papers that can be included in our CAPSI journal publication. Those papers must be complete. They have to undergo a rigorous review process, peer review process, and if we are satisfied, those authors will be given a full package to attend the conference. So at the moment, we are accepting papers. We have a few that are already in, but because the deadline is on the 26th of April, we expect that the last week or towards the end of the deadline, that's when a lot of papers come through.
Thank you. And Tsele, finally, let me come back to you and maybe talk briefly about your research interests going forward, because you joined, as just recently, but you were focusing on ROOC, and ROOC is coming to an end. And you and I have been talking about some of the research areas that you could develop. So maybe just give us a couple of them that you'll be working on.
Beyond the ROOC, I'll be working on still in the space of social entrepreneurship. As colleagues have said, that CAPSI is a fast-paced environment in the sense that it takes you out of your comfort zone. During our ROOC, we visited different social entrepreneurs, and you, Prof, you said, this entrepreneur, we need to do research on it. And I said, you know what, because we need to do it, let me just jump on it. And I'm very busy with it. I believe that I will be presenting it at our conference in Victoria Falls. And beyond that, one of the outputs for ROOC is we need to develop a teaching case. So we are trying, me and my colleague, to see which shape or form it will take. So it will be one of the research that I'm focusing on. Beyond that, I'm trying to look at different research that one can do, but these 2 research is one that I'll be focusing on this year. And also beyond that is to also get a skill when it comes to resource mobilization and grant funding. So I'm busy trying to learn that and develop that, because I believe that postdoc gives me a chance to have the administrative side of research, where you go out and seek grant for yourself. So those are some of the skills that I believe I want to learn, so that at the end, when I finish my this process, I will know that I've achieved whatever I wanted to achieve. Thank you.
Great. Thank you so much, colleagues. And just want to end by saying that everyone here at CAPSI is a researcher. We just happen to have these colleagues representing the research unit. If you look around, almost everyone in this room has had the opportunity to research and write something. And some of you have even traveled with us to present at international conferences. And that's the spirit that we want to encourage. I was actually looking around and thinking of the people who are here and those who are not here, Dennis and Matemba and others. These are products of CAPSI. So in the next couple of years, we should be sitting in a room where lecturers, researchers are all CAPSI products. And I think for us, that would be such a huge contribution to society. So thank you so much, Tsele. Thank you so much, Mida. Thank you so much, Wycliffe. These were the research colleagues that have joined us to explain the work that we do at CAPSI within the realm of research. I would want us to move to the next segment, which is a segment on our special initiatives within CAPSI.
You've been listening to the CAPSI podcast series, Conversations on African Philanthropy.